Folks, welcome in. We're ready to talk some NFL on a Monday. And I got to say, not this week, but next Thursday, we are going to be live with NFL action between the Kansas City Chiefs and also the Houston Texans. But today, we hit the AFC North. This is sportsbookreview.com, and this is your AFC North prediction. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. We're getting you ready for opening day in the NFL. Been doing it for a few weeks. Kyle, this is our last week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows live next week. What a time, man. What a time.
Oh, it's getting closer and closer, and you feel the anticipation ramping up. I'm getting more and more questions about fantasy football league drafts. Yesterday was absolutely crazy. Every friend I had was drafting yesterday, so it was an intense day. Right in the middle of that, my dog got loose, so that was fun. Everyone's texting me. They think, I'm big timing them because I'm over here at the wonderful Sportsbook Review. I try to tell them, no, man, I'm chasing a dog down the street, and, I can't run like I used to. But very excited. I love this division. I think there's some value in this division. I'm looking forward to that. And next Monday at this time, our hearts are going to be beating through our chest. We're going to be ready to pop on Thursday Night Football. 2 Mondays from now, we're going to be talking Monday Night Football doubleheaders. It's close. It's time.
No, I'm excited for it. And we don't get to see it on TV outside of Hard Knocks where they run around in some shorts and a t-shirt and you see some jokes, but we don't get to see all that much of it. And you talk about a really interesting point here with DFS and fantasy. Because I remember throughout the years when it was just evolving, you try to wait until the last possible moment, the last Sunday night to get it in because you're worried about injuries. Week 1's in the preseason, 2, 3, and 4. You want to get that feel, hey, maybe this running back might come up. Boy, this wide receiver looked really good. But we have none of that. So you talk about a lot of stuff up in the air to do your research. And all of a sudden the season opens up. You're like, the hell did I pick that guy for? So there's a lot of conjecture that we're going to have throughout the season, Kyle, and you should know a lot about that stuff. But also keep in mind, when we start going live in the NFL season starting next week, we're going to do a lot of fun stuff. Yes, we are sportsbookreview.com. We gamble, we bet lines, and we give you ideas on, this might make sense. But also Kyle's going to bring a lot of knowledge doing DFS stuff because if you're not in the DFS realm, which I'm not really a fantasy football guy, but if you're not including some of those optics into your sports betting knowledge, you're really selling yourself short. So it's great to have Kyle for the rest of the season, all the way through the Super Bowl, where we're going to bounce stuff off gambling-wise, but also any fantasy topics that come up. Kyle's the guy that you certainly want to go to. Let's not waste any more time here. The AFC North, when you look at this division, you say, holy cow. We got a healthy Ben Roethlisberger in the Pittsburgh Steelers. We got Cleveland, who finally fired their head coaching staff, has a ton of talent. Maybe they take the next step. You also have Joe Burrow and the young squad there with Cincinnati, who does have some weapons at wide receiver. But, we'll see where they factor in. And, of course, leaving out the Baltimore Ravens, almost that impact unit that came by storm last year and is still back in it. From top to bottom, Kyle, this division is stacked.
It is stacked, and I think the Bengals do progress forward. And you kind of made a great point about, the information and everything. It's important to note this Saturday is the deadline for NFL teams to cut their rosters from 80 to 53. So if you are fantasy drafting, me personally, I'm not doing my draft until Saturday afternoon for the one league I'm playing because it's just if you drafted yesterday and you drafted Leonard Fournette in the fourth round, you're kind of bummed out today, right? You're a little bummed out after he got released by Jacksonville. But yeah, this division should be really good. Cleveland always finds a way to get in the way. Again, another rookie head coach. It's got to be their 30th coach in the last 15 years. No team has higher turnover with their head coaches, but you think that Kevin Stefanski should be a stabilizing force. Obviously, a terrific offensive mind, a nice pedigree with Minnesota last year. So you kind of know what they're going to get there. Ben Roethlisberger coming back makes this division even more interesting. You've got one of the heavier favorites in the league in Baltimore, who've had a few changes, but by all accounts and on paper, they have the easiest schedule in the league in terms of opponents' records from last year. And normally you don't want to put all your weight on that because things change from year to year. But in a year like this, we don't really have much else to go off of with preseason and stuff like that. So I think it's an interesting division. It's probably one of my favorite divisions to bet on right now. I love the value in this division, especially when you have such a heavy favorite up top in Baltimore. So I think this division's a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're going to beat each other up. And also, we know we had the Major League Baseball trade deadline, which is actually just ended at 4:00. So we'll see if some of those remnant trades come through. But also taking a look at the trade deadline, so to speak, for the NFL, Logan Ryan comes home to the Giants on a 1-year, $7.5 million deal. So adding some depth there to the secondary. Obviously, after losing Xavier McKinney to, I guess, allegedly robbing people. So he won't be playing in the NFL this year. We'll see if he gets back. But some interesting news there. We always like to keep you guys updated. Also, if you're just watching now for the first time, 66,900 people have subscribed to sportsbookreview.com right here on YouTube. If that button is red, flip it over to gray. Turn your notifications on. The NFL season is upon us tomorrow. Kyle, tomorrow. It's September 1. That just means only one thing. It's football season. We got you covered in college football and professional football right here on the channels. And if you haven't done so yet, hit that button. Also, come in the chat box, say hello. Sincere Miller's out here. Any value with the Bengals? We will get to that. But let's start off with some nice little topics here before we go in depth. We're talking about odds here in this division. Baltimore Ravens minus 200, Pittsburgh Steelers plus 340, the Cleveland Browns plus 480, and the Cincinnati Bengals at 26-1, bringing up the rear. Now, when you look at it overall, to me, I mean, look, they're favored for a reason. The Baltimore Ravens are the best team in the division, but this is the NFL. You don't have your team week 1 and say, hey, look, Kyle, nobody's going to get injured all the way through and they should win the Super Bowl. Because if that was the case, there wouldn't be any betting lines out here. You just stack the favorites and say they're going to win it. But you're talking about key injuries to different parts. You're talking about the Steelers with a dominant defense getting Ben Roethlisberger back. You're talking about, as I said, with the Cleveland Browns, do they take that next step? Quarterback going into his 3rd year. You got weapons at wide receiver. You have a loaded defense talent-wise. And then you have teams like the Cincinnati Bengals where they're going to play their spots, but obviously should not be in a factor. The one thing that's tough about this division, Kyle, which we talked about already with the NFC North, there's so many good football teams that they're going to beat each other up, and we'll see what happens at the end of it. But the overall look of it, Ravens are the favorite and obviously deserve to be. Yeah,
they certainly do. And I mean, a couple, losses on the team. Marshall Yanda retired, Pro Bowl offensive lineman. Of course, they lost Michael Pierce, who then opted out for COVID, so no one was going to get Michael Pierce anyways. The Earl Thomas fiasco last week. Apparently he is channeling his inner Steve Smith and just can't stop punching teammates. So there are some losses here, but this team is loaded. Now, the one concern, as is always the concern when you have a running quarterback, is Lamar Jackson is such a big part of their offense. If something were to happen to him, a sprained ankle, a lineman lands on him wrong, he gets hit hard on the sidelines, there's a lot of risk with running quarterbacks, and then that team instantly drops. Now, I know they have RG3, but would you really have Baltimore as the favorite in this division if RG3 was their quarterback as opposed to Lamar Jackson?
Nope.
So you just wouldn't. You simply wouldn't. So there's a lot of things to consider there, and that's why I think there's some chance for value. They love this kid, apparently out of Ohio State, J.K. Dobbins. Apparently he looks great in camp. Yeah. You have a loaded backfield, Mark Ingram, Dobbins, Gus Edwards, who they just re-signed to a longer-term deal. So it's a loaded team. They did lose Hayden Hurst over to Atlanta, but all that means is Mark Andrews is going to be on the field more. If you remember last year, he only played about 49% of the snaps. It was really frustrating from a DFS and fantasy perspective. Still caught 10 touchdowns. And by all accounts in training camp, he is unguardable. He is absolutely dominating in practice right now. And remember, they're practicing against a pretty darn good defense there in Baltimore. So I think all signs point up. Now, I'm not big on betting on the favorites, especially, a minus 200, minus 185. Again, you can shop all these books at sportsbookreview.com. Yep. And one important thing I want to bring up when I say that, you can't just go when you look at the books and look at the number and go, ooh, I love that number. Because different books have different minimums, different maximums that you can bet, different ways that you can pay in. So you want to make sure that it fits your lifestyle, fits your budget. That's why going over to a place like sportsbookreview.com and shopping them and finding out the details is really important to do. Don't just be, beholden to those numbers more. So make sure it fits your lifestyle as well.
No, you're certainly correct on that. And we get back to some talking points on the Ravens itself. You bring up a good point because you really in the NFL only go as far as your quarterback can go. So when we take a look, obviously Lamar Jackson is that explosive, but let's also see a shorter offseason this year. We expect him to take that next step, but did miss a couple of days for a strained groin. And for a guy who's built on his legs and making people miss, that might be something to keep an eye on. But the stars align for this team, it seems like every year. Yeah. Even though, Earl Thomas is out, that's going to be a major shakeup. Got a couple guys retiring. That front seven is is nasty. We'll see if they can replace. You don't really replace Earl Thomas, but you can fill in. That's a great organization. They'll be able to, coach him up and put him in places that work. But that running game is especially going to be strong again because look, Mark Ingram is a great running back to have as one. J.K. Dobbins is a special player. And then again, Gus Edwards, another banger. Kenyon Barner, who coming over from San Francisco, also played with the Philadelphia Eagles, that third down type back. You also add a wide receiver. Marquise Brown should have hopefully a healthy year. You got Miles Boykin still there, but also when you take a look down, Willie Snead, a good third slot type receiver, but also Devin Duvernay comes over in the draft. One of my favorite guys in the draft out of Texas, that small water bug. So and also James Prochet. So when you're going to have guys that are fast, that are going to have extra time, because this isn't a quarterback that you sit back there, hey, he's a statue in the pocket, 3 seconds and we can sack him. He buys his time out here, much like Russell Wilson. These little water bugs are going to be wide open. Big things for me for the Ravens again. It's hard for me to fade the Ravens until I see injuries, but I know, and you know as well, Kyle, when you're a gambler, you're trying to get the teams that are on their way up as opposed to already there. There's not much value in taking a 2-1 specifically, or a -2-1 specifically in a division where there's so much talent behind it, because one key injury, Cleveland Browns and Pittsburgh Steelers looking to get on the chopping blocks there.
Oh, absolutely. And, you bring up Lamar Jackson, and we talk about his legs all the time, and they didn't throw for a ton of yards, 27th in the league last year, but he's still tied for the league leading touchdown passes, or was right behind Jameis Winston. He threw 33 touchdowns last year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he has that big play ability, and especially when he starts breaking the pocket, and everyone knows Lamar Jackson can go 80 yards on any given play with his legs. They lose one of those guys over the top. Marquise Brown is an explosive player, and that's another guy they've been raving about, no pun intended, in camp, because it's just day after day, every day I read it, it's another touchdown to Marquise Brown in the scrimmages. The first team offense went down. Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown. So you do expect them to take that next step in terms of the passing game. They have the running game. They have the defense. They did bring in Calais Campbell, who is an absolute beast. So you're not losing a lot by losing Michael Pierce. I also like the addition of Derek Wolfe, one of those gritty type defensive ends who can give you a ton of snaps. They brought him over from Denver. So a lot of good stuff for Baltimore. You're right. It's hard to fade him. I just don't love the number. When you look at what's their total, 11.5. I mean, we talked about it. The easiest schedule on paper in terms of last year's win-loss record is the Baltimore Ravens. They're also going to travel the fewest miles of any team this year. They won't leave the Eastern time zone after week 2. So that's a big advantage for them. So, and you can find a little bit, it's gotten a little bit better. It opened at -115 to go over that 11.5 total. Now you can find some books, Pinnacle has them at +108. You go over to Bovada, it's -105. So there you go, 2 different. So I don't mind taking a little +108 action at over 11.5. There is that concern that this division is better, so they're going to kind of beat each other up. And they do have some, week 3 Monday Night Football against Kansas City. That's going to be a hell of a game as long as everything, goes according to plan. They've got your Eagles in week 5. That should be a fun one, a tough game. Then they've got Pittsburgh, the Colts, the Patriots. We'll see how they look, the Cowboys. So you could make the case for the under, but right now the stars are aligning for Baltimore. No doubt.
Yeah, you got to get to 12 wins in order to cash in. 12-4 is a pretty good record, but also some of the interesting things that you like to look at is, tacking on wins late in the season. Now, again, granted, from year to year, you don't really know how teams are going to turn out or how they're going to progress. And, most teams, the NFL is built on, if you stink the year before, they're going to try everything they can to help you out, give you better draft picks, give you an easier schedule. But at the end of the season, we're still looking at Jacksonville at home, the Giants at home, and on the road at Cincinnati. You're talking about 3 bottom feeders that you should be able to clean up. So if you're in a pickle with like the, Pittsburgh or Cleveland or whoever it is, you got 3 easy ones to end the season and then ride off into the sunset. But again, you're talking about 12 wins in order to cash. Should they get there? Probably. But in a shortened season, I'm not with taking a team that needs to get to 12-4 in order for me to cash that ticket, even though I do think they are the favorites in the division. Now, second place team in the division, at least odds-wise, here, the Pittsburgh Steelers. there's a lot to like about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number one, if you're going to get a healthy, rested, and ready Ben back in the pocket, that is a major coup because you're getting Duck Hodges and all the boys that tried to fill in. You're getting helmets smashed over your head while you're trying to play football, and rightfully so. They weren't very good, but the defense was absolutely stellar for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The only thing that they were missing to me is a quarterback, and you're going to get a Hall of Fame quarterback back. Now, you get older in football. Father Time is undefeated, as they like to say. So just because he had a year off, he still had arm surgery to an older quarterback. Now, Mike Tomlin, Ben Roethlisberger, oh my goodness, he looks better than he ever did, even when he was 25 years old, which they're going to tell you every time. But the truth's going to be in the pudding once he comes back. But he still has a really good offensive line. Could have a good running game. If Juju Smith-Schuster can bounce back, look, I'm not going to fault wide receivers for having down years when you had, guys that aren't NFL players playing quarterback for you. So you think they'll bounce back in that respect. I love the defense in Pittsburgh here, and I think there's some pretty good value at plus 340 on the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this division.
Oh, you hit it right on the head. It's right now for me, and it was kind of this way all the way back when the schedule came out. Again, Pittsburgh has the second easiest schedule on paper. Yep. And I love, it's probably my favorite value right now is the plus 340 on Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Ben Roethlisberger, you mentioned it, by all accounts. I've actually had that same injury. I was a quarterback a long time ago, and I've had that same injury.
Could you throw it over a mountain, Kyle?
I don't know if I could throw it over a mountain, but I could get it there. There was a time when I could sling it. Now I go and play once a year on Thanksgiving morning, and my arm hurts for 4 weeks, and I can't walk until Christmas. But, that's neither. The young guys are looking at me like, get the hell off the field. But by all accounts, he's not having any arm pain after practice. On his days off, he's continuing to throw. The arm strength seems to be there. And you talked about that defense. I remember last year after Ben got hurt and they were trotting out Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. And then it looked like they were going to have a bad year. And then they traded their first round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And I remember thinking, what the hell are they doing? They are giving up a top 5 pick for a guy who's sort of, not overachieving so much in Miami. Well, I was dead wrong about that because that defense became so much more opportunistic. It looks like this year they're focusing on keeping him more in center field, which is perfect for him. They have the elite pass rushers on the outside, Bud Dupree and TJ Watt. Love the running game. James Conner should be healthy this year. Benny Snell, the second round pick from a year ago. They bring in Anthony McFarland this year from Maryland. Deontay Johnson, their rookie wide receiver last year, really looked like he took a step forward. And, with a bad quarterback, had a pretty solid rookie season for how bad the quarterback play is. James Washington looks like he can be ineffective. They bring Eric Ebron over from the Colts in the red zone. They even signed an XFL guy, DeAndre Tompkins, who was good for those Houston Roughnecks. I like Pittsburgh. I love the value here. I'm trying to remember the team total for their wins, but I don't think it's outrageous. 9.5.
9. Yep, 9. We actually had it listed at 9 at minus 110. So basically, if you get double digits, 10 wins, you're going to cash it. If not, 9 and 7, you just get that money back.
Yeah. I really like Pittsburgh. This Ben Roethlisberger is not coming back from a knee issue or an ankle or a broken leg. So he's normally a pretty sturdy guy and can hang in there throughout the season. Is an elbow procedure. Lots of players have had to have it, and he could still throw. He was just having pain afterwards, and he decided, screw it, let's just get it done. If he is anywhere close to his normal self, I think Pittsburgh is a great value this year.
Yeah, take a look at their schedule also. You're opening up against the New York Giants on the road. Ooh, tough. There's no fans there, so not really a tough environment for them. No. Then you get Denver at home. You get Houston at home. You go on the road to Tennessee, which is a good football team. Philadelphia at home, Cleveland at home, Baltimore on the road. So they do open up, and I don't want to say it's advantageous, but it's not murderer's row. I would not be surprised if they open up 3-0 before they head to Tennessee. It is, again, it's all a factor on Ben Roethlisberger, but it's not like a rookie or a second-year guy who's like, boy, I was just getting my feel, Kyle, in the NFL, and now it really abrupted. The guy is a professional. He's going to the Hall of Fame. Now you just want to keep him upright. And if he could deliver the passes, this team has the weapons. And I love the fact that you bring up like the wide receiver core they have, also adding Chase Claypool from Notre Dame, another big target. And say what you want about the Pittsburgh Steelers. When they draft wide receivers, they produce and they kick them out. Now, Do they have a 4 to 5 year shelf life in Pittsburgh before they move on? Maybe, but it seems like that's certainly a position that they're able to coach up. Still a solid offensive line that I look at, and that's a main cog, because if you're going to lean on a defense that wins at every level, secondary, extremely fast linebackers, strong, tough front line, those are the teams that are in it, because even when you're having a down offensive day, you can lean on that defense. Interceptions, turnovers, they're going to give you good ball back in good field positions. The Steelers at 340 seems great because, again, in the National Football League, people get injured. Not to say that Ben Roethlisberger will get injured again to the Steelers, but you're talking about laying 2-1 or minus 200 with the Ravens. One injury to a quarterback, that is a live division for me, and certainly Pittsburgh kicks that door in.
Oh, yeah. I really like Pittsburgh, and I really like what that you brought up, Chase Claypool. You remember you talked about how they kind of coach up those receivers and then they get rid of them. Emmanuel Sanders is a great example of that.
Yep. Antonio Brown.
Antonio
Moss.
Santonio Holmes.
There you go.
Yes, Santonio Holmes. I mean, the great catch in the back of the end zone. Yeah. No, this team, and they're going to be well coached. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, Mike Tomlin's one of the top 2 or 3 coaches in the NFL. They're going to be well coached, well schemed. Also, just a quick little hitter for you fantasy guys. Do not draft the Steelers kickers. They go for 2 more than any other team in the league. You will be very, very disappointed. I'd love the Madden curse.
Also in Pittsburgh, yeah.
Yeah. I love the Madden curse comment. You're right. There is the Madden curse for Baltimore there, giving me even more love for Pittsburgh. Just going over division by division, maybe the AFC South, which we'll get to on Wednesday. I like the value there for a couple of the teams, but man, plus 340 for a team like Pittsburgh with a Hall of Fame quarterback and that defense, it seems really, really, really hard to pass up. It's one of the more exciting bets for me this season.
Another one they kicked out also, Pro Bowler Mike Wallace. So, I mean, they get him up there, Pittsburgh, and really kick him around and say, we'll get the best out of you. And then, have a nice day. We'll draft your replacement right behind you. So we'll see if Juju Smith-Schuster, who seems like a really nice guy, almost that counter to what, Antonio Brown and all those other guys, Antonio Holmes provided. But we'll see what takes place. But Pittsburgh, they have the ground. And this is one of those teams, again, maybe a little bit lower last year. They could take that next step, getting that infuse of talent, specifically just from their quarterback. Now, the next team we're going to talk about here was everybody's All-American last year. Oh, my goodness. Like, now's the time that the Cleveland Browns are going to pounce. This is their year. But again, when you're talking about coaches like Freddie Kitchens and the ownership in the front office that maybe aren't the right fits, the talent certainly is here for the Cleveland Browns to have a productive season. But now you add the head coach, more analytical approach, maybe be able to coach up Baker Mayfield, not throw so many interceptions. You have talent at wide receiver. You have a fast tight end in David Njoku, who doesn't catch all that well, but he is fast and can open up the offense. You're looking at a rebuilt offensive line, sluggers in the backfield that can hit home runs and also have power, a defensive front that can really get after you, a talented secondary. Everything is in place here for the Cleveland Browns. But again, when I look at the Cleveland Browns, I say to myself, Kyle, I need to see it before I believe it with them.
That you just took the words right out of my mouth. That was the first thing I was going to say is I need to see it out of Cleveland before I believe it. Now, there are some concerns when you kind of go through the camp reports. Myles Garrett's been missing practice. Greedy, that entire secondary is missing practice. They had one of the better secondaries in the league last year, Greedy Williams, Morgan Burnett, Demarius Randall. Well, they got rid of Morgan Burnett and Demarius Randall and are replacing them with Carl Joseph and Andrew Sendejo. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out. You brought up David Njoku. They also brought in Austin Hooper from Atlanta, who was the number 1 tight end in the league last year until he got hurt. So they're 2 deep at tight end. They have a decent offensive line. They did just lose their rookie safety, Grant Delpit, out of LSU, and that's a big loss for them. Looks like he's going to be out for a significant time or the entire season.
Yep.
But there's so much talent with Landry and Beckham and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. And we know how Kevin Stefanski likes to run the ball. You saw the kind of the 2-headed monster last year with the Vikings with Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. So the talent is there. I like the addition of Kevin Stefanski. I'd really like to see the Browns keep a coach for more than 1 season. This seems like the type of guy who can do that. It just goes all the way back to that Ernest Biner fumble, doesn't it? Is this team just cursed? What is it about this team? I hope I see less Baker Mayfield commercials and more Baker Mayfield touchdowns this year. I don't know of a roster that is more talented, that underachieved last year, you really do expect them to take that step forward. And when you look at the odds, it's not a terrible bet, plus 550, plus 500, plus 565 on some of them. The win totals for this team, not through the roof. What, eight and a half?
Yeah.
Looks like 8.5 across the board. I could see a 9-7 team here.
No, I mean, and when you take a look overall, Cleveland, because again, it's about being coached up. Because I always thought their GM was a buffoon. I thought their head coach was a buffoon. Their owner is a buffoon, and that's when leadership reflects all the way down through the organization. But when you take a look, if you can get a healthy year to Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr., dominant pairing up front, nice third option, Rashard Higgins. You also draft Donovan Peoples-Jones, speedster out of Michigan, that you can try to work in. And again, maybe he doesn't make all the plays, but if you have one specific duty, hey man, run fast and open it up for the rest of the guys, he can do it. You improve the offensive line, which is exactly what you should do. But again, it comes down to your quarterback. But if I'm going to turn around and be able to hand the football to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and then say, all right, I need to stop on defense, or we need to attack the quarterback. Myles Garrett, Ogunjobi, Richardson, Olivier Vernon, and then you have an ultra-athletic linebacker core. But the only problem is you did get hurt with Mac Wilson. He's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks, young athletic linebacker they have, but he will be back on the season, where it stinks because Grant Delpit was one of those guys you're looking at last year in college football as one of those possible top 15 picks. He comes in, you figure you get him as a steal, and he's going to go down for the year, so maybe he recovers, but you have a good secondary. Everything is in place again. So you're talking about 3 teams, talent-wise, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Cleveland Browns in this division all will be vying, obviously, for their team totals. But if there's an injury, a key injury to one of these 3 teams, one of them should be able to step up here. And that's just the way I see it. But again, gets back to the original point. Everybody and their grandmother last year was high on the Cleveland Browns. Yeah. And at the middle of the season, like, you know what? That's the Cleveland Browns, Freddie Kitchens. We're first and goal at the 1. We're going to throw it 4 times and not score any points. That's exactly what they do. Horrible turnovers. Baker Mayfield throwing in the double coverage on first and goal. I mean, you see it time and time again. Stefanski should be able to come in, clean up the ship, because for once, you might be able to come in and say, hey, look, I'm the offensive coordinator, but this defense is really talented. My offense is really talented. Instead of dialing it up on 3rd and 1, let's hand the football if we get a first down and keep the chains moving. I'm high on Cleveland this year, but again, still comes down to me, Kyle. I need to see it on the field.
Yeah, and you brought up the offensive line. Adding Jack Conklin from Tennessee, I thought was a great addition. Yeah, great move. And even if Baker Mayfield struggles, you got a guy in Case Keenum who was the starter in Kevin Stefanski's offense 2 years ago when he led the Vikings to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about hey, one injury to the quarterback could derail this team. I'm not so sure that's the case in Cleveland. You could see an upgrade if Baker Mayfield's struggling, where Case Keenum can come in, kind of be a stabilizing force, a veteran, knows the offense. I think that's a really, really good point. I like the addition of Adrian Claiborne too. They should really be able to get after the passer this year. If Myles Garrett, if Myles Garrett can stay healthy and not, bash people over the head with helmets, it just goes to show you, right? If you're supremely talented, you have a guy in Seattle tries to sneak a girl into the room and he's gone. Then you have a guy like Myles Garrett starts beating a guy over the head with a helmet. He gets a contract extension, a massive one. So it is what it is. But I do like the Kevin Stefanski hire. I do think it stabilizes the team. It's really going to be about if they protect Baker Mayfield and if they can stop the run. They did allow, they were 30th in the league last year stopping the run. It is sort of a concern. They did lose Christian Kirksey, who was a fantastic linebacker for that team. So it is something to think about, but the talent level is through the roof for this team. We just need to see it happen.
Yeah, no, undisciplined is probably the best word for the Cleveland Browns over the past couple of years. But also, you might say that Myles Garrett finally cracked the code in the NFL. If your life depends on the NFL and you're going to face a massive suspension, make up everything you can about the guy who you did something to said about you, you will get your suspension reduced. Because we were talking about last year, hey, the NFL is saying he's suspended for the rest of the year, and then we're going to decide how many games in the future. Myles Garrett makes up a story here. This guy said this, and all of a sudden, the NFL goes, okay, clean slate, you can start week 1. So that really helps him out, because we were really looking at Myles Garrett probably missing the first month of the season, and that's a huge blow to one of the best pass rushers in the game. Now, coming in fourth in the division. Agree they should be fourth in the division. I don't see much value in the Bengals, and it's not the Bengals' fault because sometimes you end up in a division where you say, all right, we got the number 1 overall pick. We go with the quarterback. He should be our franchise player. We have a multitude of weapons in the backfield, an average offensive line, but the best way to help out a young quarterback is have legitimate weapons at wide receiver, which the Bengals do. But it's not the Bengals' fault and Joe Burrow's fault that you wind up in this division where you have the Cleveland Browns, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their number is 5.5. If they're in another division like the NFC East, which I always like to pick on, with the Redskins and the Giants, they would be able to hang their own and maybe not finish in the basement. Just as a matter of who you're matching up with, it's not to say I don't like the Cincinnati Bengals, Kyle. I just don't like the Cincinnati Bengals because of the division they're in. It's going to be hard to get to the 6-win plateau in that division because they are going to get beat up by that division.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. I've been trying to go through, and you can find a few games. Jacksonville looks like they're going to be a dumpster fire. The Giants, the Dolphins, Washington. So maybe that's 4 best case scenario for you. And then where else you're going to have to, maybe sneak out a win against the Chargers team who just lost Derwin James. Of course, we'll get to that on Friday. I love the weapons. And A.J. Green is back. And by all accounts, he looks healthy. They drafted T. Higgins in the second round out of Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I really liked is they added these players, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, even Khalid Kareem out of Notre Dame from these bigger schools with winning cultures. And that's what they're going to need in Cincinnati. Joe Mixon. We'll see if he kind of gets the credit he deserves. He's been battling migraines. There's been a lot of talk because, we have Alvin Kamara, who's not showing up at practice because of a contract dispute. And a lot of people thought the same situation was going on with Joe Mixon. That is not what's going on. He's been battling migraines. So that's why he's been missing practice. Looks like he's eager to work out a deal once his headaches subside. A lot of turnover here. They did lose sort of their red zone target in Tyler Eifert. That was a guy who would be healthy for about 5 games and then have massive concussions and the constant issues there. But Joe Burrow looks good from everything you read. And again, they're not going to come out and say, oh, our number 1 pick, we just named the starter, looks terrible. They're never going to do that. But he looks like he's poised. He's hitting big plays. AJ Green looks healthy. So you're going to see a better version of the Bengals this year. But you're right. The chances of them winning this division are slim to none. It would take something catastrophic. Look, if you love playing those huge long shots, which I actually did the other night in MMA, it was like a plus, she was a minus 1,600 on favorite. And I just bet the dog just for the hell of it. And it worked out. She won the fight. So maybe you have, the Browns, the Steelers, and the Ravens COVID outbreaks, and maybe they have to miss a bunch of players for a few weeks. That's the only way I could rationalize putting money on that. Other than that, I think it's going to be tough to get over that 5.5. I do think there's some value going the under 5.5. You can get under plus 123 on Pinnacle right now at Bet Online plus 100. So even though I think the Bengals will be better than last year, I just don't see them getting the 6 wins seems pretty iffy for me.
Yeah, I mean, the last time you could probably look at maybe a rookie quarterback, and I'm going back to maybe 2004, Ben Roethlisberger with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was inserted a couple games in and really insulated with a dominant run game, great wide receivers. That was the Plaxico Burress, Hines Ward teams. They actually didn't make the Super Bowl that year because they got beat at home in the AFC Championship game to the New England Patriots, which then went on to beat my Philadelphia Eagles in 2004. But this doesn't have the makings of it. But there's one goal for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. And I always like to rip on Mike Brown and the organization, the cheapest guys out here. The players got to pay for their own socks, and they only have like one scout because they fly him coach on Spirit, and they want to say, all right, after week 8, don't scout anymore. That's just what the Bengals do, the cheapest organization in football. But they did the right thing. When you had a young quarterback, he's going to be your franchise guy. Nothing else matters but surrounding him with some talent that he can use to take that next step, because they're going to get beat around this year. But you know what's not going to happen? Guys aren't going to be locked down on at the wide receiver position where he's just going to be shell shocked like the Carr brother back in the day with the Houston Texans, where his head exploded because he got sacked 900 times as a rookie and was never the same again. You're going to have AJ Green, John Ross, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Auden Tate, a plethora of weapons along with some good veteran backs. Because say what you want, it's a nice 1-2 punch in the backfield when you come up with Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard. He has all the weapons he needs to make those plays because, again, he is going up against fierce pass rushes. The Steelers front line's coming after him. The Ravens front line is coming after him. The Cleveland Browns. I mean, these teams are locked and loaded for bear up front. It's going to be nice that when that pass rush comes in, 1,000, 1,000, that ball's got to be out. He's going to have some wide receivers that can make one-on-one plays. And you bring up a good point, losing some red zone weapons. No A.J. Green last year. That's going to be quite a help where, hey, it's one-on-one coverage. Oh, my goodness, I'm about to get sacked. It's a pretty nice player to throw up and have one-on-one coverage. But as I said previously, not high on the Bengals, and it's not their fault. It's not their talent. No. To me, just the division they're in, Kyle.
Yeah, just the division they're in. And you talk about all the pass rushers they're going to have to face. Week 1, they faced the Chargers. They got Melvin Ingram and Bosa coming at them. So it's not going to be easy. And then you've got the Eagles week 3 after Cleveland. The Eagles front 7 is going to come after you too. So it's probably going to look scarier than it is. You just want to keep Joe Burrow upright and see that progression head into year 2. He seems like the right kid. Like he says all the right things. He does all the right things. Seems like he has a ton of poise. Should be a nice stabilizing force. I like the direction the Bengals are going, but they're a couple years away before I'm picking them to compete in this division at all.
I'm excited to watch the Ravens play. There's no doubt about it, but I'm not going to lay minus 200 in order to win the division. We're taking team total over an 11.5, which means we got to get to 12, specifically because you don't have any home field advantage this year. And that's a huge thing with the Ravens. And now you're looking, down ballot, as we like to say, coming up in an election year. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they can certainly capitalize. Cleveland can take the next step. I don't really doubt what the Cincinnati Bengals are going to do because, again, just about getting Joe Burrow healthy and ready for year 2 where you can hit the free agent market and you get some normal circumstances where a rookie quarterback can come in with a full off season and work with his weapons. So if we take a look at the Ravens, I'll go under the 11.5. I'm going to go over the total in the Pittsburgh Steelers at 9 because if we fall at 9 and 7, you're still going to get your money back. And I'm going to go over also, how crazy I sound here because each and every year people predict the Cleveland Browns over 8.5. I think they can get to that 9-win plateau. So if we're going to go 2 teams on the over, I'm going to finish up with the Bengals going under 5.5. 4 to 5 wins seems about right for them. Again, unless you said, Ben Roethlisberger has COVID, half the Ravens defense has COVID, and the day of the game, the Cleveland Browns lose their starting wide receivers to COVID, then they might have a chance. Otherwise, they're going to go under that total. What are you thinking here finally with some words on the AFC North here?
Well, I know it's never fun when we agree all the way across the board, but damn it,
we go wrong.
Yeah, something's definitely sure to go wrong. So let's make sure we erase these tapes in about 6 weeks. Yeah. But I agree. If I could find somewhere, I don't see it now where it was a 10.5. Like I like about 11 wins for Baltimore, so I got to take the under there. I like the Steelers a lot. I think that's the value in this division where I want to spend my money. I might sprinkle a little bit on Cleveland too, just because I like to set money on fire, and I'm sure they'll do something to burn me. Again, no pun intended. I will take the over on Cleveland as well. And then Cincinnati, I'm trying. I'm looking here and I'm like, please give me a reason to be, contradictory and take the over. I mean, I can only find 4 games where I'm like, I think they have a reasonable shot to win. Yeah. I guess if you want to sprinkle the Texans in, which you need a Deshaun Watson injury by the end of the year for that to be, or maybe the one way I could maybe talk myself into this is if Baltimore has already clinched the division week 17 and they play Baltimore week 17. True. So Baltimore, trots out their backups. But again, you're trying to do some mental gymnastics there to get yourself there, which I'm not big on doing. So I think I'm right there with you. I think it's a fun division. I'm looking forward to that Cleveland-Baltimore game week 1. We're going to find out a lot about these teams right away, especially Cleveland. And then week 3, Chiefs-Ravens. Circle that.
No, you're right. By the way, when we talk about at the end of the season, like week 17, sitting players down, the Baltimore Ravens don't seem to care too much about that because even though like last year RG3 came in, I believe they took the Steelers out when the Steelers had something to play for in week 17, and the Ravens had nothing to play for. So they're just one of those teams built top to bottom that they look at the scoreboard when anybody else, preseason game, regular season game, week 17 with just backups, they really care. So we'll see if that actually comes into it. But it's fun talking football. AFC North preview in the books. And guys, again, Wednesday and Friday, last 2 divisions, AFC South and AFC West, and we go live with football the following weekend. Sportsbook Review is definitely the place to be, and if you're just watching now for the first time, you missed the show. Hey, Donnie and Kyle were on. Wait a minute, it's 4:37. I missed 30 minutes of the show. Hang tight there. There's a link below, sbrpicks.com/NFL. Everything there throughout the season. You're going to have picks. You're going to have videos. You're going to have write-ups. Everything designed to make you guys out there watching a better sports gambler, specifically in the NFL. Kyle, I'm having a lot of fun, and it's only just beginning. Next Thursday, we got football live. 2 more shows to go before we get to actual game week here. We'll have some fun breaking it all down. This has been the NFL Football Show on SportsBookReview.com. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. We're 1 week away from the NFL. Stay tuned right here